Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us again on Aspiration, Inspiration with me, Jason George, where as always we aspire to inspire before we expire. And today our guest is the man, the myth, the legend, the one and only former South African all-rounder, JP Duminy. JP, thank you so much for joining us. Everyone knows you as the,
Jason,
the
thank you very
famous
much.
JP Duminy, the famous number 21, the South African all-rounder in terms of playing for the Proteas and also in, club cricket. But who is JP Duminy? Let's start with, what was it? You grew up in Strandfontein. What was it like growing up in Strandfontein for you, JP?
Yeah, like you said there. Firstly, thank you for having me on your show, man. It's a real privilege. And you started right at the beginning there. Grew up in Strandfontein, and I absolutely loved it. I mean, that's where the love for the game started. And it's as many young cricketers or young kids in communities, we loved playing sport in the streets.
Yeah.
And it was no different for me, using the black big dirt pins as your wickets and, those kind of things, and hitting it into people's gardens at 6 and out and, those kind of experiences. So I certainly loved it. We played all sports in front of my grandmother's house because that's where I pretty much grew up, was in my grandmother's home. We moved from time to time between Strandfontein and Mitchell's Plain, but, my friend's base was where my grandmother stayed.
Yeah.
And like I said, we played cricket, football, even roller hockey, basketball, you name it. We played everything. But just coming back to the love for cricket, it certainly started in the streets, imitating, the legends of the games, the Herschel Gibbses, the Jacques Callises, and so forth. We loved watching them play on telly. Yeah. And here I was, imitating them in the street, really trying to be them. Yeah. And just to fast track before we come back again, the great story about that is ending up getting to play with these guys that I tried to imitate as a young man.
Yeah.
So that was quite exciting for us. All our friends in that vicinity really enjoyed sport, and how I started playing club cricket was literally following friends for Strandfontein Cricket Club, and that was how I grew for the love for the game. And I remember my very first game fondly, where I got a first ball duck, actually. Yeah, and then I remember clearly it was a leg spinner, and I got bowled through the gate, and I was really disappointed as a 9-year-old kid or 8-year-old kid. And I remember the thought as well was, I think it can only get better from here, because
of course. And it did, eh? Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where it all started, and I played for a few years for Strandfontein, and then went on to high school, where academics was not necessarily a strong suit, but I needed to get through that process, but there was always this love for sport. Football. I would say football was probably a first love in playing the sport. I don't particularly watch much now, but I loved playing football. I played club football, but then at a certain point when I was about 14 or 15, cricket became pretty serious, because I was making provincial teams, and I needed to decide, because there was a lot of injury concerns with regards to football. Yeah. So I needed to decide, right, if I'm really going to take this seriously, I probably need to give it up. So that's what I did. I stopped playing. I didn't stop in totality. I sort of lessened the amount of games I played.
Social level or something.
Yeah. So then cricket became serious, and took it a lot seriously mentally as well. My parents and grandparents were extremely supportive. I think my grandparents never missed a game. In my junior years, they travelled not on the plane, but I'm saying in Western Cape and Cape Town, they traveled everywhere, every Saturday or every weekend that I was playing. Yeah. They were there to support. I remember the blue Toyota Corolla parked under a tree, and they were there to support. So that was great. And the support structure for any success story, I guess, is so crucial. So
just on that, how do you say that, academics were not necessarily your thing, but how do you break it to your parents or, your grandparents look, I want to play cricket as my career. How did that happen for you? Did you always know that you were going to make it, in the cricket industry?
So the story actually is my dad was somebody that really kind of saw that picture before I did. So yeah, excuse the bracelet here. I'm in lockdown. So, when I was about 9 years old already, he was telling people that I'm going to play for South Africa. So he saw something in me that I didn't particularly feel.
Yeah.
But he saw it. So, for me, it was in a way like almost embarrassing sometimes in the places and to who you would say it. Like when I'm in the company, it's like, no, man, it's like you feel shy. You don't want to be surrounded when somebody's speaking like that about you. So I didn't necessarily believe it, as a youngster. I knew that there was a sense of talent. There was an ability. I loved playing the game. Yeah. But it was always my dad in particular that had this belief that I was going to represent South Africa. A quick story was my 15th birthday. My dad somehow got Herschel Gibbs, who was my hero at the time. He got him to come to our house, to my dad's house, to visit as a surprise for my 15th birthday. I mean, can you imagine your hero standing on your doorstep?
Yeah.
And, that was like an awe moment for me. And it just so happened that night itself was a fundraiser that we were raising funds for our UK tour for our school. So Herschel attended that function. And I remember fondly, all the players and some of the parents standing around Herschel as we're having conversations and he's sharing some stories. And my dad shouts from the back of the crowd saying, "Don't worry, this boy's going to play with you one day." And I'm like, oh my goodness. No social etiquette. I mean, really? So, but lo and behold, 5 years later, I was in the same team as him. So, that was the kind of the belief that he had in my ability. And, there were various moments in my upbringing, particularly my junior years, where I wanted to give up. I wasn't doing particularly well. And, it was that support structure that really got me through those tough times. So I'm very grateful for not only my parents and grandparents, but certainly everybody that has been in my corner since day one.
Definitely. I mean, the lesson for me is, I think for young people, we tend not to believe what people say about us. And like when people say good things about us, we don't want to believe the good things people say and the affirmations that they speak out over our lives. And also like the other message that I get is like, I think parents, need to support our young people in the dreams and aspirations that they have, because that's very important, because I mean, it went a long way for you. But JB, did you, I mean, you touched on it a little bit. Did you did you expect that you're going to make it this big in cricket?
No, not at all. I mean, if I can put it into a stat for you, if you had told me when I was 16 years old that I was going to play 326 games for South Africa across all formats, I would have told you kidding. To make a career out of it as long as I did, and I see it as a massive, massive privilege. And I certainly, and this is testament to the support structure and my upbringing was, I certainly don't take it lightly in that privilege, and how can I best use that to affect other people's lives, and to bring positivity to other people's lives. And, I read this one quote actually yesterday where it said, I don't want to live a life striving to earn a living. You want to live a life earning a life, meaning that you want to affect people in a positive way and live a life affecting love and compassion to people. And I thought, man, that is it's deep for this conversation probably, but it is very much, I'm very much aware of that, like I look back at on my career and I think to myself, wow, did that really happen? It feels like it just happened in an instant because you're looking back now. But when you were in the moment, it was hard, it was tough, there were joyous moments. There were moments you wanted to give up. There were moments of victory and escalation of experiences. And then you sit now here, post it, and you think to yourself, wow, man, what an experience.
Yeah.
And I would certainly want to use that experience to uplift people, to encourage people, and not just use the good bits. You know, there are great success stories there, yes. Yeah. But it's actually those failures that shape you in terms of your character and in terms of the person you become one day. So how can I best use those experiences to affect change in people's lives, to affect positivity in people's lives? But not portray it like you know it all. Portray it like you're there to learn. Portray it like you're there to build relationships and friendships with people, that you know that it's a two-way street, where it's not only me parting knowledge and wisdom on you, but in this relationship and in this connection, I'm feeding off you as well. Yeah. So even in a conversation with you, Jason, yes, I'm your guest and I'm meant to be this inspirational story, but it's a two-way thing, you know what I mean? So what can I walk away from in this engagement and conversation that is going to affect me in a positive way, going, leaving the conversation?
Yeah, and I think that's a great way to go through life, because then you turn all of your experience sort of into a learning experience. Then you don't take the failures and the tough times as hard. And talking about that, you mentioned that it's not just about pointing out the good parts, but for you, JP, like if you care to share like some of your challenges that you faced, and how did you overcome those challenges that you faced?
For me, one of the biggest challenges that I faced was based around identity. So, where does your identity lie? And that was a tough thing to navigate through, and which I'm still, on that journey. And identity for sports people in itself can be so easily wrapped in performance, so easily wrapped in what people say about you, how they view you. So, interestingly, how you phrased speaking to me in the beginning was JP Duminy, the cricketer, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. That's a part of my life. But ultimately, I'm just a human being. I'm just a person that has had certain experiences. But people will associate you with those experiences. Right? So I needed to work through, who am I? Who am I really? Am I only going to be remembered in terms of a legacy for the runs and wickets that are performed on the field? Or am I going to be remembered for how I made you feel? Am I going to be remembered for the conversation and connection I had with you? And that has been the sort of deeper meaning behind this identity thing. I'm a man of faith, and I believe my identity lies within God. But even in saying that, it's not as easy as it says, as I'm saying it. You get tested in various ways to, all right, if you're saying that, so now what about this? What about this? And these are the kind of reflections you have on yourself. It's not people necessarily, pointing you out. It's your self-reflections and your convictions that you have on a daily basis. And this is where this identity becomes such a prevalent part in my life, because so now you've been remembered for the last 20 years as a cricketer. How do people associate with you now being a poster player? Or, I'm always interested by people. Are we going to be, as an example, on our social media platforms, are we going to be posting about the past? Are we going to be posting about, when I played that shot, or when I scored that runs, or a TBT year, or, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. What I'm saying is we always have to weigh the intentions of our hearts when we do things. And I think that is the defining conviction for ourselves is, what is your heart's intention in what you're doing? And again, it all stems back to this identity idea of, where does your identity lie? So that has been a contrasting experience for me, where it ebbs and flows. And even today, even though I know in my heart my identity lies in Christ, there's always challenges that leaves questions for myself, so but it's an ongoing experience, as you would well know. It's a journey.
Yeah, no, definitely. I can relate to that 100%. It's like, and I think it's the pressure of also, me still being in the journey you know, you look at the end result of where you want to be, and you're like, yo, there's a long way to get there, and there are certain things you're gonna have to do to get there, and the journey sometimes becomes so difficult that you start questioning, and it's usually those tough times where you start questioning things about identity. Is this really who you want to be? Is this really what you want to do? And it's tough getting that out of your mind. I think it's and I'm also a man of faith, but it's the human element that sort of comes through, that doubt that gets into your mind. You're like, am I really going to make it? Is this the type of person that I want to be? And if the journey is a bit bumpy, then we start questioning, but it's very, very interesting that you say that. But you are now, and you touched on it a little bit, about how people will remember you, Jay. You're now retired, and what does life look like for you now? Now that you're retired, and we see that you are working on the JP21 Foundation, and you're a man of faith, and there are things that you probably do in that regard. What is life like now for you after retirement?
Well, I think in the immediate, I think life after cricket, particularly for me, but I think in where we all find ourselves is a very different space based on the last 6 months of all of our lives, around COVID. So yes, there were certain plans that I had in place for 2020, as everybody did, which didn't unfold. So currently, as you would know, I think we mentioned it earlier, I am in Abu Dhabi, so I'm doing commentary in the IPL. And this is something that I've done previously in the last 2 years as well, which I've really enjoyed. It's a great way to stay in the game, and there's a lot of fun elements to it. So I enjoy that. You mentioned the JP21 Foundation. So that is always going to be an ongoing thing. And just a little bit of background on that, we pretty much run and coordinate primary school cricket in Mitchells Plain and Strandfontein. So we operate within 36 schools out of 54 primary schools. So we, it's quite a large project that we got going there. We operate over 2,000 kids a week. For us, it was more about creating mass participation initially, because you had a massive community as Mitchells Plain, and cricket wasn't necessarily being played in the schools. So we saw an opportunity to come and make a difference, and the success stories have been great. We've had some really cool stories come out that really warms your heart in I guess just reminding you of why you do it, So that has been really special. From a work front, there's obviously, as I said, commentary. I'm busy with my level 3 coaching course, as well as another course that Gary Kirsten is running. So that's been keeping me quite busy. I've just finished a strategic business management course as well. So just trying to upskill and equip. Yeah, it's been, as I'm sure you would have known, we've kind of pushed this back a few times, based on time. But it's been busy but good. For me, it's about upskilling, educating myself on certain things that I want to get involved in. There are a few business elements to that as well, which is quite exciting for the future. But for me also, like, as much as I'm mentioning my own goals and aspirations, we spoke earlier about being a man of faith. I always come back to the true source of, all right, Lord, where are you leading me? Where are you guiding me? Where are you wanting to take me? So as much as I have goals and aspirations, I'm always aware and wanting it to be aligned with His will for my life. Which is an important aspect of it.
Definitely. Definitely have to keep it, leave the room for God to do His work. I think we sometimes have our destiny of where we see ourselves, but when He has other plans, then we need to just
exactly
get on with it. And then just on the work that your foundation is doing, for someone that's maybe also listening, that's playing cricket at the moment, maybe the kid, in the street, that's also that has aspirations of playing at the level maybe that you played on. What does it take in terms of, physicality, in terms of mentally, what does it take to be successful in a cricket career?
Yeah, so I don't think there's a clear-cut way of what that looks like. One can only share one's experiences and what you believe are true attributes that one needs to possess for that to unfold, And I think the hunger and desire and the passion needs to be there for wanting to get to the next level or to the top level. I mentioned earlier about a support structure. Support structure is really important. And again, it's not the end all and be all of you getting there. I mean, there are many stories where people come from really tough backgrounds that have made it to the top and have had the real drive within them to keep going no matter their circumstances. So there are various elements at play. And, the word sacrifice is used very loosely at times. And we don't particularly understand what that means and what that entails. Understand that to reach the top, there are certain sacrifices that come, whether it be not spending time with friends or having to spend time away from the family. In my case, traveling quite a bit, even now, being away from the family for 2 months. There are certain sacrifices that comes with it. And I think it's about getting your mind switched onto that, that, we have to be able to deal and cope with those pressures. But also be open to vulnerability, and speaking about how you're feeling. This has been the biggest challenge, I guess, in being in a sporting environment, because as men, we feel we can't show weakness. We can't talk about our fears and anxieties and vulnerabilities. No, we don't do that. But ultimately, I truly believe that is where the strength lies, in owning it, in confronting it, in fronting up to those fears and anxieties and speaking into it. And if you need help, seek help, speak to people. Sometimes it's just about getting it off your chest that actually helps the cause. So those are certain things that I feel are real key attributes in a real success story. And obviously there's the skill factor, being able to hone your skills, surrounding yourself with people that are going to help you hone those skills. So getting the right coaches, the right mentors, the right people around you, whether it be, I've often looked at a cricket career, for instance, as a few-pronged approach. Like there's the mental aspect, there's the nutritional aspect, there's the physical, the tactical. There's various others that probably one could fit in there. But the view that I had was, who am I going to entrust and be accountable to in those specific areas to give me the best chance to be successful?
Sure.
So that was a key component. And this only came later on in my career, because I was, we can probably speak hours for this, but I was quite a lazy character growing up. I did the bare minimum in terms of work ethic, and I relied solely on my talent, and it got me to a certain point. But then the consistency in being in the high level and top level cricket was not going to be just reliant on talent, because literally everybody's talented there. So what is going to maintain a career at that level? It takes hard work, sacrifice, and so forth, and the work ethic that you put in. So that came later on in the mid-20s, where I realized a switch kind of flipped, where I realized, okay, if I really want to do this for a long period of time, I'm going to have to make some changes in my life. But I realized that I couldn't do it by myself. I needed to surround myself with people that are going to push me, that I can trust, and that were going to be there through the dark times. And so I did that. And they certainly helped me get through some challenging times, but also enjoy the victories and successes, because you need to be able to celebrate that as well.
Very, very important advice. And I think the one point that stands out for me is, it's nice for you to get to that level where you wanted to be, but to maintain that, and constantly having to step up, because it becomes quite clouded where everyone's talented, so you need to kind of always find a way to step up and to make yourself better and make yourself stand out and to be at the top of your game. But JP, in terms of your career, which I think spans almost 20 years, what is your most memorable moment? I remember from my perspective, I remember in the IPL, this was quite recently, Slat 50 in 15 balls.
Oh, that was CPL.
Yeah, in the CPL. That is crazy. But for you, what is your most memorable moment in your career, if you can choose one?
So I'm gonna answer that in two ways, right? So I'm gonna go specifically in a cricketing experience, So 2012, we toured the UK in a test series against England. And whoever had won that series was going to claim the number one spot in test cricket. And that series, man, it was an ebb and flow series of notes. We ended up taking the series 2-0. But, just in the way it started, that was actually the year where Mark Boucher hurt his eye. And the bail flicked his eye, and that he lost sight. And then that's when he retired from test cricket. And that was actually and the opportunity that came for me to be in the team, because I wasn't part of the playing 11. So it was through that injury that actually I got an opportunity. But just that experience in itself that he went through kind of brought our team closer together. Not that we weren't, but it enhanced the experience of togetherness, because one of our own was really affected, and then just the manner in which that series unfolded and my part that I played in that series was really special. And that last test match that we played at Lord's, the ebb and flow of that test match itself, like every single day was a different event, because nobody had the upper hand really, and we literally won the game in the last session of day 5. And the crowd the crowd was just amazing, electric. And that experience definitely stands out as from a cricketing sense. And then the second point I wanted to make was, particularly in the last 2 years of my career, firstly, I got to captain the Cobras. I got to captain a few games for South Africa. And, playing in a handful of tournaments, T20 tournaments for different teams. So being PSL, which is the Pakistan Super League, Caribbean Premier League, the Canadian Premier League, and then the MSL, which is the Mzansi Super League. And we won those every tournament. But that is not the highlight necessarily. The highlight is the relationships that I've formed with players, and the beauty of that being that because I was not playing for South Africa at the time, my focus was completely off myself and my personal performance. Yes, there were personal performances, but I had this sole focus of affecting people and my peers in a positive way. And it's just amazing to see now that I'm not playing anymore, how I still have contact with those players, and they are seeking, let's call it counsel at times in their careers, because of the relationship and the vulnerability that you formed with them. You realize that you affected them in a positive way. And I think that for me in itself is a real highlight, that I'm able to still connect with players that I've played with. And they've really taken to the fact that I took an interest in the person beyond the cricketer.
Yeah, Joe, that's amazing. And I mean, there is a saying that people won't remember what you did, but they'll remember how you made them feel. For those people to still feel comfortable to reach out to you, even after. I mean, to me, it's like I'm trying my best to not be starstruck in this moment. But it's just like if I played alongside you in a cricketing match, I would be like. And then to still reach out and to seek guidance, it just shows, once you at that level and you open yourself up to people, to seek counsel and to reach out and to, move forward together, and get people, ahead together. But talking about people, JP, I don't know if you can choose anyone, but out of everyone that you played with, you mentioned Herschel Gibbs earlier, that came to your house and then later you played with him. But out of all the people that you've played with across the various leagues, who would you say, stood out as you loved playing alongside this particular person? Or these particular people, who would you say are those people and why?
It's a tough answer to pick one, to be honest. There's a handful, probably, and probably even more.
Yeah.
But there are various people for different reasons, I think of someone like Hashim Amla. I mean, he needs no introduction in terms of his cricketing ability, but just the superb human being he is. And, having offline conversations with him now, both of us being retired, and, just reminiscing about certain experiences and we had, and we kind of just laugh about, how much pressure we put ourselves under. And just, his humility is second to none. He's just a great human being and somebody that, and somebody that I'm pretty sure our friendship will go a long way. Faf du Plessis, who's one of my best mates. We share a common purpose in our faith as well. So that's a journey that we walk together. David Miller, I love batting with him. I mean, we probably spent the most time batting together in the national team. And then just going back to like your Western Province days, I think of guys like Dane Pitt, who I've still got a great relationship with, Rory Kleinveld. We went to school together actually at Plumstead. So those are guys that I absolutely loved playing with. And yeah, man, there are so many others that I could mention, but for now, those are the guys that really stand out. Yeah, and the beauty of it is that with every one of them that I mentioned and so much more, there's a friendship that will last for a lifetime.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously it's also like, it's a team sport, you play alongside your team members all the time. So you're not like individually or in teams of two, because I mean, the cricket team is quite huge as well. The last few questions, in terms of now future plans for JP, and you mentioned already that, we can make the future plans, but, things like COVID happened this year, for example, and there's also the aspect of we trust in God as to where He's going to lead us. What can we expect from, JP Duminy going forward, sort of, things to look out for? What are your future plans?
What's that saying? We make plans and God laughs. But look, I mean, my sort of aspirations and goals are, I want to grow particularly the foundation to a point where it really creates some positive change. Not that we're not, but I'm talking in huge numbers. So that's something that I really want to see grow. My involvement in cricket, I'm certainly, I'll be lying if I'm saying that I know specifically what that is. I'm still trying to navigate my way through that, but I know there's a deep desire and aspiration to affect change within our sport, within our country. So if you were to ask me, name some buzzwords that is associated to your purpose, I would say things like inspiration, encouragement, empowerment, coaching, and those kind of things that really, if you think about coaching in itself, it's never about the coach. It's about the players. Yeah. It's about surrendering yourself to a situation that you're there to serve. So service is of utmost importance in my heart. And how can I best serve others in communities, in general? Wherever I am, I'm in Abu Dhabi. How can I best serve my environment that I operate in, and not just want to take and take and take? Yeah. So those are the kind of things that I think about, and that doesn't necessarily particularly say, right, I'm going there.
Yes.
And I think I'm comfortable with that right now. Yeah. In that I'm wanting to discover that on this journey, that as I mentioned earlier, I want to be closely aligned to God's will for my life, and in alignment with those buzzwords that I mentioned there. What does that look like? So something that I'm really passionate about right now is youth empowerment. So I've become an ambassador for a company called Cape BPO, and their main premise is finding jobs for the youth of disadvantaged communities. Yeah. And they in the call center, contact center sectors. And that for me is really exciting, because it's a new venture. Yeah. It's totally out of my comfort zone, because it's not necessarily sport related, but it's very much aligned with passion. Yeah. So how can I play a massive and pivotal role in that? So I'm quite excited about that.
That's incredible, man. And I mean, it doesn't have to be, clear cut. And I mean, just, it goes to that point of, our purpose is greater than just, the achievements of what you're going to achieve. Right. Actually, the lives that you've touched along the way. And JP, thank you so much. You've certainly touched my life today, and those of those who will be watching this interview. And thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Any final, thoughts that you want to leave with us for anyone that is watching? Is Strandfontein part of Mitchell's Plain is also a question that we can get into another time. Any final thoughts from you, JP?
So I mentioned this earlier. I mentioned this quote that I read last night, and it has really been a powerful thought for me. And I wanted to end this conversation with leaving that thought, actually. And how does that impact your life in some way? And the comment goes, I don't want to spend my life making a living. I want to spend my life making a life that makes a difference, a life built on love and compassion.
Sure.
Mic drop.
Yeah, definitely drop mic. Thank you so much, Duminy. And if you've been watching this and you've been inspired by what we've been talking about, thank you so much for joining us again. Leave a comment, DM us, chat to us. We would love to hear from you here at Aspiration Inspiration. We as always, we aspire to inspire before we expire.